Hey, what's going on? This is Ed Fletcher, and we are at City Hall for a Black Lives Matter protest slash address. They're going to talk about some of the recent law enforcement proposals aimed at dealing with law enforcement issues better. There has been action at the city level. Mayor Steinberg is proposing creating a Inspector General to help oversee and to adjudicate cases in which there's allegations of inappropriate force being done. And he's also proposed a $5 million fund for people that are in for a non-law enforcement unit to help with mental health and homeless cases and those sorts of things. There's also proposals moving at the Attorney General's office and Governor's office. So there's lots of conversations now about banning chokeholds, about changing our use of force rules, and really trying to engage in this conversation of how do we create better law enforcement outcomes for Black and brown people. I played a little preview on my Twitter with Tanya responding to some of these suggestions. I don't suspect she's going to be highly favorable of it. The concern is that these are half steps and not appropriate for the size of the issue. But if you watched my broadcast earlier, my Ever Forward episode interview with former Sheriff John McGinnis, he is of the opinion that by and large the system is working. I see Tanya getting a microphone, and we'll go to her now.
It is our duty to win. It is our duty to win. We must love and support one another. We must love and support one another. We have nothing to lose but our chains. We have nothing to lose but our chains. It is our duty to fight for our freedom. It is our duty to fight for our freedom. It is our duty to win. It is our duty to win. We must love and support one another. We must love and support one another. We have nothing to lose but our chains. We have nothing to lose but our chains. It is our duty to fight for our freedom. It is our duty to fight for our freedom. It is our duty to win. It is our duty to win. We must love and support one another. We must love and support one another. We have nothing to lose but our chains. 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 Thank you. Thank you. My name is Tanya. Stays on. Black Lives Matter Sacramento. Anyways, we're out here today because for the last couple months since COVID, our council has not been holding any meetings in chambers. They've been holding them virtually. And so normally when times like this come up, we're able to fill up this room and have our voices be heard, and sometimes they walk out on us. And if there's a lot of media, which there is right now, they would not be able to do that because it'd look bad for them. Right. So they're taking advantage of the moment right now because of COVID to not have council meetings in chambers. And that's why we're out here to tell our mayor and our council to get back to work. Right. They're when they're taking comments virtually, a lot of times there might be like 400 comments, but only 3 of them are read. And I'm pretty sure they're handpicking what they want to read. Yep. They're avoiding any type of conflict, all while they're trying to make change in policing, and they're not hearing the people, and their changes are whack. Their changes are just pacifications. They're all symbolic. They've already been implemented, and they're still terrorizing us. The SAC PD hasn't killed anybody since 2018, which is good. But because of that, I don't know what's inside of them, but they're still terrorizing our communities. All of the people that we've been fighting for in the last year and a half have been children that have been roughed up by the police, children that have had guns pulled on them by the police, people in the community that have been terrorized by the police, 15, 16 cop cars going into the big park, which is McClatchy Park and Oak Park, going into the big park for nothing. For nothing. And it's regularly. So they're still terrorizing us. And they're going to use the fact that they haven't killed somebody to validate these changes.
They just blinded a little girl, though.
Yeah, man. Let's talk about that.
Long ago.
I mean, let's talk about the fact that they've been shooting rubber bullets at people's faces.
What are they doing?
They shot a 13-year-old in his jaw. He had to have surgery.
Yeah.
They shot a woman in her face at our event.
Right.
I didn't even know about that until I saw it in the news, and she won't be able to see in one of her eyes forever. And then they shot a comrade in the face. They shot them 6 times, and 3 of those bullets hit them in the face, and they have a fractured skull. So those are major, major damages, and you're not killing us, but you're torturing us physically, and you're injuring us physically, and you're terrorizing us mentally and physically and emotionally, and you're going into our communities and you're terrorizing us. The gang unit needs to go away.
Right.
Their whole job is to racially profile people.
Yes.
Right.
And so that needs to be out. We need to get rid of that, the get team. The POP unit, they're supposed to be problem-oriented policing. All they do is go into black communities. What does that say about black people to them? Who's the problem?
They're
The police are the problem.
System.
The whole system. The culture. People keep talking about bad apples. There's no such thing as bad apples. We're not here to fight bad apples. We're here to fight the culture of origin. We're here to abolish the police. A lot of folks have been asking what defunding the police means. Everybody has a different agenda. Everybody has a different end goal. And so when you hear people answer that question, they're giving their perspective. We are an abolitionist organization. We don't want the police in our communities anymore. So defunding is one step toward abolition. That's why Chief Hahn said we can't be defunded because we won't be able to exist. That's the point. What do we want? Justice! Do we want it? Now! Do we want justice? Do we want it? Now! We don't get it? Shut it down! 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 Don't get it? Shut it down! If we don't get it, shut it down! What do we want? Justice! Do we want it? Now! What do we want? Justice! Do we want it? Now! If we don't get it, shut it down! 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 Silence is So we have some demands for the mayor and for the city council and for the city manager. Did y'all know that the city manager is the only human in the world that can fire a Sacramento police officer?
Yeah.
There's only one person in Sacramento that can fire a cop, and that is the manager. And he's friends with them. We got videos of him in parking lots just shooting the breeze with the police. It is a problem. It's a conflict. So we're gonna read off our demands.
We call for the Sacramento City Council to stand in solidarity with the community of Minneapolis, Minnesota, and call for immediate disband of the police department. This includes reallocating the $10 million in Measure U funds for the police department and allocating the Measure U funds back to the community for real community improvements like those we outlined in Measure G, in which the council failed to support a mere 2.5% reallocation of city budgets to school and programs that support children, but instead remain steadfast in the continued investment in police and brutality and violence that is enacted in our community. We call for an immediate reallocation of the funds for the police department to the communities that have been over-policed. These immediate reallocations should follow the 2.5% budget reallocation that was recommended in Measure G. We call for an immediate change to the city charter so that the city manager, an unelected official, is no longer in charge of termination of police officers, and that the responsibility be aligned with the Sacramento mayor. We call for the immediate removal of the current city manager of Sacramento for taking no action in the face of police brutality, included but not limited to the deaths of Joseph Mann, Daryl Richards, and Stephon Clark. We demand a change to the hiring practice of the police officers in the city of Sacramento that will prevent the city of Sacramento from hiring any officers that have a previous record of misconduct. We call for an immediate and formal rescinding of any endorsements for District Attorney Anne Marie Schubert for lack of seeking justice surrounding police brutality in the city of Sacramento. We demand that the current police commission be disbanded and an immediate creation of the police oversight commission is created. This commission should no longer be used as a tool for the police department to seek diversity to the policing when we know that that policing itself is the issue. Community members getting murdered by black police officers is not the answer that the community is looking for. We demand that a commission that is modeled off of the Police Oversight Commission in Oakland and Berkeley that has complete authority to investigate police misconduct up to and including 100% subpoena power for all documentation, including police personnel, files. The Police Oversight Commission will hold complete authority for disciplinary action up to and including the ability to terminate police officers. At the end of the result of any Police Oversight Commission investigation, the final determination and action will be provided to the Mayor of Sacramento, who will execute the recommendations of the Police Oversight Commission up to and including termination of police officers who have been found engaging in police brutality or other measures of misconduct. We demand that an equity stake be present on the Police Oversight Commission, meaning that at least 50% of the Police Oversight Commission be made up of black people who have been historically oppressed by the policing department, with an emphasis on black men occupying that 50% of black people represented of the Police Oversight Commission. We demand that there be no police presence on the Police Oversight Commission, including but not limited to current and active police officers, those who are former police officers, those that lobby or advocate on behalf of the police officers, as well as those who have negotiated on behalf of the police union or any such affiliation with the police department.
Yes.
We demand that individuals on this council be held responsible for the ways they have taken action and contributed to police brutality in the city of Sacramento. That includes, but is not limited to, in the ways the council has walked out on the community during public comment, or any such agendized item that has been placed before the council surrounding police brutality in Sacramento. This includes, but not limited to, allowing a mother whose family member was murdered by the Sacramento Police Department to speak due to council walking out of chambers, as well as action taken by individual members of the council with the support of the council to award and provide medals to officers who have been involved in the police brutality, including the murder of black members of Sacramento. We demand that the Police Oversight Commission reinvestigate all police-involved shootings that resulted in the death of members of Sacramento community and those that did not result in the death of Sacramento community members. We demand that the new Police Oversight Commission have full subpoena power to reinvestigate the police involved in the death of community members in Sacramento and all instances of police violence. We demand that a completion of these investigations and that the recommendation for disciplinary action up to and including the immediate termination of police officers involved in the killing of community members in Sacramento or engaging in any police brutality against members of the city be delivered to the mayor, and under the aforementioned new alignment of the police disciplinary action aligned under the elected official mayor of Sacramento, that the mayor execute orders to complete all disciplinary action recommended by the Police Oversight Commission.
Yes.
We demand that there be an official apology issued to Daisyon Fanon's family and the community at large for awarding the officers who killed Daisyon. We demand an immediate stop of police using of tear gas as a form of violence against unarmed protesters. Use of tear gas as a warfare, as well as any other chemical weapon, was prohibited in the Geneva Protocol in 1925. It prohibits the use of asphyxiating gas or any other kind of gas, liquid, substance, or similar materials, a treaty that most states have signed. It is absolutely antithetical to have tear gas deployed as a means of police brutality during a peaceful demonstration about police brutality, as it shows a systemic precedent of police violence against unarmed people, and it must immediately stop. We demand that the Sacramento City Council immediately set forth the policies and restrictions of police and other law enforcement agencies called to assist with demonstrations to restrict the use of the police and other law enforcement agencies to using such things as rubber projectiles, tear gas, flashbang grenades, pepper balls, and pepper spray to be used against peaceful protesters and or looters as pursuant to the U.S. District Court Judge R. Brooks Jackson ruling in Dipper. That prohibits the use of such force which would have prevented the harm that came to community from the police, and use of these weapons out of police, including but not limited to a local activist that was shot in the head and torso with a tear gas canister and rubber bullets, resulting in the activist having a reconstructive surgery. A youth who was shot in the face with a rubber bullet by Sacramento County Sheriff at point-blank range that resulted in severe head trauma. A woman who was shot on 21st of J with a rubber projectile that resulted in her permanent loss of vision, as well as a National Loyal Guild observer who suffered severe hair trauma as a result of being shot in the head with a rubber projectile by police while filming a demonstration. Sacramento's adoption of U.S. District Court Judge R. Brooks Jackson's ruling would have prevented our community members from experiencing such violence at the hands of the police while simply engaging in their First Amendment rights. Disbanded, and that this unit is nothing more than an array of racially profiling black and brown members of the community, which often leads to continued harassment of black members of the community. We demand this disbandment of the police navigator unit attached to the homeless budget, and it's clear that it is not necessary for the role of policing to play, nor is it appropriate to criminalize homeless folks, making them only pass through the house. Accept and take accountability for these demands, which have requested by the community, as the correct solution to addressing police brutality. Without accountability of past actions, the ability to elect and hold police accountable, and the community to hold everyone accountable through the oversight of policing process, including accountability, all other actions will fail.
By law enforcement since we've been doing this work and in the year that we started doing this work. If I could, when I say their names, if you could repeat after me and say their names as well. We want them to hear us. Gabrielle Navarez. Adrian Ludd. Dejan Fleno. Joseph Mann. Jason King. Lorenzo Cruz. Desmond Phillips. Ryan Ellis. Michael McIntyre.
Michael McIntyre.
Stephon Clark.
Stephon Clark.
Brandon Smith.
Brandon Smith.
Daryl Richards.
Daryl Richards.
Marshall Miles.
Marshall Miles.
Maurice Hawley.
Maurice Hawley.
Antonio Thomas.
Antonio Thomas.
Ashe.
Ashe.
That's a lot of people. And that's since 2014, so it's not that long of a time frame. So Gabby Navarez took her grandmother's car without permission, and her grandma called the police. And the police murdered her. It was Citrus Heights Police Department. She was a young, queer, black woman. Adrienne Ludd was killed by the Sacramento Sheriff Department. They said it was a high-speed chase, but it only went for 1 block, so it couldn't have been that fast. Their story changed 3 times. First, they said that he shot at police, and then they said that an officer was grazed with one of his bullets, and then they said that, oh, he had a gun that didn't work, and it was next to his body, so he couldn't have grazed anybody with a bullet. His family still hasn't received any type of paperwork or anything. And then there's Dejon Fleno, who was suffering a mental health crisis in the Valley High area. SAC PD came and hunted him down. They even told neighbors to help hunt him down. Beat him with a bat, they said. Joseph Mann was executed in the street in broad daylight by SAC PD in the Del Paso Heights area. He was shot at 16 times and he was hit 14 in his lower proximity of his body. That's a bad, bad look. They chased him with cars. They lied about what they did with that until video came out from a civilian. And then they had to release video, and you could hear the officers saying, "Get him, get him, get him." And then they cornered him against the fence and killed him. And yelled out, "Fuck you," before they did it. It was personal. Or they thought it was. Jason King was killed by CHP. They tried to say that he had a gun. His wife says he did not have a gun. And he was suffering a mental health crisis. Desmond Phillips, he was beaten by SAC PD in Sacramento. His dad took him out of Sacramento and moved him to Chico to get away from the police. That beating that he had gave him major head trauma, and he suffered seizures because of that. So one night while he had a seizure in Chico, EMT came out and they were afraid of him. And so they called the police, and Chico police killed him. And he was on the ground as he was being shot still. Lorenzo Cruz, that story changed a whole bunch of times. He was shot by Rockland police. They said that he was trying to break into a house at 10 a.m. in the morning. Come to find out, he knew the girl that lived in that house, and her dad was an ex-law enforcement, and they're a white family. You heard the gunshots being shot off while the wife was on the 911 call telling police to come out. And the police came and took credit for killing him, even though we probably think it was the law enforcement officer that lived in that house. Ryan Ellis was arrested on a restraining order because he was at his aunt's house doing laundry with his girlfriend. They were both homeless together. And the ex-wife drove past them and saw them and called the police. So they came and they arrested him. They put him in the back of a sheriff car. They handcuffed him, and they say that he was able to lunge out of the car. How many people been handcuffed before?
Right here.
In the back of a car. You can't lunge out of a car with handcuffs.
What?
You can't, if you don't have arms to push your body out of anything, you can't lunge out of a car and break a window while the car is driving, with the deputy driving it. So that's what they said happened. He was picked up at 7 p.m. He was brought to the hospital at midnight. What really happened? Michael McIntyre. There's video on that. It just came out. He was executed on the side of the highway running. He was suffering a mental health crisis. He reached out for help, and they told him he was all right. And then they murdered him a couple hours later. There's so many of them. Stephon Clark, in his grandma's backyard, a safe space, grandma's house. He had a cell phone. They changed that story a couple times. What is a toolbar? I don't know. That's on Windows, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. It was a cell phone, though. He had no weapons. Brandon Smith was going to get help in housing. He was on probation. His mom dropped him off with his probation officer. He ended up at Volunteers of America, beaten by a probation officer. And when SAC PD came to get him to bring him to the jail instead of to the hospital, they threw him in the back of the car and he hit his head first and started screaming. They ignored him and shut the door. By the time that they arrived to the jail, he was dead. They tried to act like they were giving him CPR, but they were not pumping his chest. They were pumping his stomach. It's on video.
Gotcha. Two different areas.
Right, and so he died while on the drive. Daryl Richards was 19, and we don't even know if the police's story is true on this. Supposedly he was on Broadway and 17th doing something, but they killed him on 2nd and 21st in someone's backyard while he was hiding because he was scared. At this time there was 3 policies that came out: the no foot pursuit policy, the body cam policy, and the less lethal forms of force policy. And they violated all 3 of those policies on that night. And there were no repercussions because these policies have no repercussions attached to them.
They don't hold them accountable for nothing.
That's why these changes are just
Need to be made.
pacifications.
Yep.
They make it look like they're doing something. Marshall Miles was arrested, and the video shows him being crushed by about 7 or 8 officers sitting on top of his body, and he was saying he couldn't breathe, and they didn't stop. And then his body went limp, and they acted like he was still alive, even though they could see he couldn't move. Maurice Holly, he was killed by the Sacramento Sheriff Department. He was told he had a pellet gun. He was told to pull it out of his pocket, and when he went to pull it out of his pocket, they shot him 9 times and left him in a ditch. So this is Sacramento, y'all. I know a lot of these stories don't get a lot of national attention. Stephon Clark got a lot of attention, but a lot of deaths happened in 2018 after him that did not get attention. And this is what happens in our city. So this is why it's so important for them to come face this and handle it, because we're tired of seeing people that look like us killed on a daily basis.
Right? That part.
They may feel like right now this doesn't apply to them, but it does.
Oh, they got 5 together.
Whose house?
Our house.
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 Black lives!
Matter.
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 Black lives! Someone here from Kentucky that wants to speak. Where are you? Ooh, Tay. Thank you. Tay, where are you, Tay?
Come on. Come on.
He's coming.
Come on, Tay. It's okay. Come on, Tay.
You're just watching us. This is Black Lives Matter protest in Sacramento, California. You're listening to Ed Fletcher. There's probably 300 or 400 people here.
I'm from Louisville, Kentucky. This is beautiful. Thank y'all for allowing me to speak and allowing me to be part of this movement with y'all. We've all heard the name Breonna Taylor in the last few weeks, right?
Yes, sir.
The people that killed her have still not been arrested. Right. They're still on LMPD's payroll.
Right?
This cannot stand, right?
No?
Excuse me, I get a little nervous speaking in front of people.
Take your time.
All right, man. You all right?
I love to see people out here standing like this because we cannot let this shit stand. We've been watching this for too long. We've been marching for too long. We've been not tearing shit up for too long. We've been letting them pacify us with bullshit ass laws for too long. Excuse me if I cuss, I know some kids out here, but we ain't got the time and I ain't got the patience. You know what I'm saying?
That part. You don't either.
It's disheartening to hear how many cases that y'all have in Sacramento. And at first you were like, nobody's been killed since 2018. I was like, oh damn, that's love. But that's terrible. And how many of them was in 2018? Now I bring to lift up the Breonna Taylor case, and I'm not trying to overshadow anything that's going on here. I just am urging everybody to continue to look at that case and continue to move with the city of Louisville around that.
Yep.
Our mayor is not trying to defund the police. Our mayor is not trying to arrest these officers. But what's important about our mayor, I mean, fucking, you know what I'm saying? But what's important about him is for the United States Conference of Mayors, he's the vice president right now.
Whoa.
And at the end of the month, he's gonna become the president. That means this motherfucker, Greg Fisher, sets the president around the nation for mayors. So we cannot allow him to set a precedent for the rest of these mayors out here. He cannot be speaking against the people while speaking for the rest of the mayors of the United States. Because we know how that's gonna go. We are working right now on getting graphics and information up so that anybody, anywhere they are, can urge their mayor to have this motherfucker resign from that position at the Conference of Mayors. We're also, I urge you once again, the organizers, I hope I can stay in contact with y'all, to be able to continue to lift up her name as well as any other in the country. And that anytime something like this happens anywhere, the city of Sacramento and the city of Louisville and anywhere else the fuck I go, we can stand together. Once again, I appreciate y'all. I love y'all. I love to see what y'all are doing out here. And I'll just leave you with this. Love black women, defend black women, and follow black women.
My mother, a Jewish woman, is a proud black woman.
So really quick, I just want to, he made me think of
From
this.
Lyon, France.
A lot of folks, I don't know, we're Sacramento, we have a lot going on. We're talking about police violence right now, but over the past week or so, there's also been a lot of intra-community violence. And we've lost some really young folks, and it's really sad, really, really sad. We lost probably like 7 people in a week. There's a war going on our streets. And I'm blaming white supremacy for this, okay? Because if we had the things that we needed from the gate, we wouldn't be building our own families in the community. We wouldn't be building our own business in the community. Trying to survive, let's do a kind ladder that we're not able to climb in corporate America because of how we look and anti-blackness. So I just want to make sure that I take time to hold space for that as well. It's impacting. I'm from Oak Park, and I always go really hard for my neighborhood because I love my neighborhood, like I love it deeply. But I really want to say something, no matter where you're from. If you're from a community that's predominantly black, we are all the same community. If you're the Paso Heights, Valley High, Meadowview, Oak Park, the Gardens, anywhere, we're all the same. We're not separate. They do that to us. And if you can have love for your neighborhood, but love others as well, because we're all having the same experiences. Whether we're in Louisville, or in Sacramento, Chicago, Florida, it doesn't matter. We're all one black community. And so we need to hold each other and hold space for our young folks and listen to them, stop preaching at them. I wasn't trying to hear nobody preach at me. I still am not. You can't preach at me. So yeah, I just wanted to say that before we go, we're gonna do the asada. That's what it's called, just so you know, the asada. Copy my tone, okay? It is our duty to fight for our freedom. It is our duty to fight for our freedom. It is our duty to win. It is our duty to win. We must love and support one another. We must love and support one another. We have nothing to lose but our chains. We have nothing to lose but our chains. It is our duty to fight for our freedom. It is our duty to fight for our freedom. It is our duty to win. It is our duty to win. We must love and support one another. We must love and support one another. We have nothing to lose but our chains. We have nothing to lose but our chains. It is our duty to fight for our freedom. It is our duty to fight for our freedom. It is our duty to win. It is our duty to win. We must love and support one another. We must love and support one another. We have nothing to lose but our chains. We have nothing to lose but our chains. If you can clap to the beat on this one, okay? It is our duty to fight for our freedom. It is our duty to fight for our freedom. It is our duty to fight for our freedom. It is our duty to fight for our freedom. It is our duty to fight for our freedom. It is our duty to fight for our freedom. It is our duty to fight for our freedom. It is our duty to fight for our freedom. It is our duty to fight for our freedom. It is our duty to fight for our freedom. It is our duty to win. It is our duty to win. We must love one another. We must love and support one another. We have nothing to lose but our chains. 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 So before we head out, I would suggest if you haven't yet to go to Senior Chavez Park and look at what's been set up over there. There's a lot of organizations on the ground that have been doing a lot of work, and we're thankful for everybody. I want to give out a shout out to APTP, Anti-Police Terror Project. They've been doing a lot of work. Again, we'll check that out if you get a chance if you haven't already. And be safe and pick up any garbage that you leave it, but leave the art there, please. Art is beautiful.
All right, the protest is breaking up now. A quick 2-hour event here. That was Tanya Faison, the lead organizer for Black Lives Matter Sacramento, that was leading the charge there. If you're late to the feed, they laid out their concerns or disapproval with the proposals that the mayor has offered in terms of dealing with police brutality as they see it, and they also laid out their proposals of what they would do to deal with police brutality, and they called for creating an accountability board that would be reportable to the mayor and not the city manager. The mayor has proposed a inspector general position. So we will see how this politics plays out with the mayor and state leaders and others trying to enact some level of reform to create a better system for policing the police. Now that we are examining this case of these instances of police brutality. She ran through her list of all of the questionable law enforcement killings that have happened in the last couple of years here in Sacramento, and it's a lengthy one. I was a reporter on some of those cases, but not many of them. But in each of those, it's a situation where law enforcement gives you one story and the bystanders or family give you another story. And until there was police video, the reporter is at the decide what the truth is and what the truth isn't. With body cameras, we're getting a much better look at what is happening in these situations, and in some cases it makes for messy decisions. From Atlanta to Sacramento and in between, we've seen numerous cases where it's at least a questionable decision. I hope you've been enjoying this. I'm again Ed Fletcher, longtime Sacramento reporter, doing some independent journalism, and I'm on Patreon if you want to support me. Signing off, thanks for checking this out, and talk to you later.